Good afternoon, all. Happy Friday. I trust everyone is safe and well. Welcome to today's Open Classroom Civil Designer Software webinar. Now, next week we're going to be changing things up a little, but just for the week, by dedicating all 4 days to sheet files and drawing production. So plan, cross sections, long sections, and composites of the three all in one plot. This will include grids, setting out information, tables, aerial imagery, plan numbering, publishing, and the list goes on. So please watch out for the 8 a.m. emails each morning next week for the sheet file topics being covered on that day. Getting back to today, with this Friday being dedicated to Design Center, we welcome back Cameron for part two of creating a project and importing ground information from various sources. As always, please feel free to use the text chat service on your GoToWebinar floating dialog to ask us any questions you may have during Cameron's presentation. So without further delay, Cameron, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Charles. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Last week, we went through how you go about creating a project in Civil Designer. In part two of the video, we then see how you can import different data sets of information. In a situation where you're in lockdown and you can't go out on site to do a survey, a solution would be to look at the Google Earth extraction functionality. And this is where we pick up from here. The objective is to take this CAD drawing into Google Earth, obtain an aerial photograph and bring that into Civil Designer, and then lastly obtain a survey from Google Earth and bring that into Civil Designer. To start off with, I'm going to go and specify where in the world the project is situated, and this we've done in the previous example. So going to my survey mode, I go to File, Project Settings, go and specify where in the world we are. Go and create a new file there. Got the projection settings set up correctly. Click on OK. And then go to File, Export, Google Earth. In this process, we'd only take our YX coordinates and convert it into a KML file, which would then be readable inside Google Earth. I only want to export the CAD drawing. But if you've already got, let's say, a road design, you could export the road design and then give your client the KML file, and your client would be able to see what your road looks like in Google Earth. Where would you like to go and save it? Let's go and create a whole new file here. And what I'm going to do beforehand is I'm going to go and select this and copy it. It will then automatically open up Google Earth. Now I've got Google Earth Pro, which is the freeware version. It's a 32-bit version. It then automatically goes and opens it up in the correct position. I have the option of turning off the CAD. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to take this aerial photograph and export that into Civil Designer. So minimizing this. Back in Civil Designer, I go to my CAD mode, go to Tools, External Utilities, and go and select the Google Earth snapshot. Clicking on OK. Specify where you'd like to save this JPEG. My projection settings is set up correctly. Click on OK. It will then take a snapshot of what is viewed in Google Earth. It will save it as monochrome, but you also have the option of saving it as a color image, which I'll do for you. Clicking on cancel. And then if you want to save it as a color image, back in Google Earth, you would go to File, Save, save image, go and specify what options you'd like displayed, and then click on Save Image. Where would you like to save it? And you override your previous saved JPEG. Going back to Civil Designer, it may be a good idea to go to your CAD layers and go and create a CAD layer here for your bitmap. Make it your current layer, and then go to Insert on top and select Image. And this is how you would load all types of bitmaps. You can see there's a huge amount of formats to select from. Selecting my image, and there it is. So it may be that you need to go and move this a bit, so you could go and click on it, left click, hold it in, and go and shift it somewhat. And this is really ideal if you've never been out on site and you want to see what it looks like, and you want to use this for, let's say, stormwater catchment design purposes. I'm then going to delete that for now. Because it's on its own layer, you could also go and switch off that layer. The last function I want to show you here is if you need to do, let's say, a preliminary design for tender purposes in this area, you don't have the time or the resources, or of course you're in lockdown, then you can obtain the survey from Google Earth. Again, back into Google Earth. And then you turn on the CAD layer again, and then you zoom into that position. Go and centralize it, and then go to View and reset the tilt and compass. This is purely for accuracy purposes. Now please note that you wouldn't want to base your final design levels on these extracted elevations. It would only be for preliminary project purposes. Back in Civil Designer, still in my CAD mode, I go back to Tools, External Utilities, and this time I go and specify Google Earth Grid. This will obtain the Y, X, Z coordinates inside Google Earth of what is visible on the screen. Specify where you'd like to save it. On the top, you can go and specify your grid dimension, and that would determine the interval of your surveyed points from each other. Again, your projection settings is set up according to your project, and then you click on OK. The elevation file has been created, and now you would bring it in like any other ASCII file. And this we covered in last week's session. So we go to your survey mode, go back to File, Import, ASCII, single file, change your file type to a data file, and go and select newly created Google Earth extraction. As mentioned last week, this is a comma delimited file because our values are separated by commas. This column represents my Y, my X, and my Z coordinates. If that's not the case, you could always click on that header again and go and make changes. Don't forget that we've got 255 surfaces that you can work with. There it is. I'm going to go and press ZL on my keyboard for zoom last, and then turn on my elevations. You are now at a stage where you can triangulate your points in order to get your contours. Moving on to the next function, let's go and close the Google Earth extraction. If I go to File, Project Settings, I've already gone and created a terrain file and specified my projection settings. I then go to File, Import, ASCII, and this time go and select multiple files. Note that all files must have the same import format. Do you wish to continue? Yes, please. Moving on to the next folder, and we're looking at some survey data. I'm going to change the file type to all files. You can see we got YXZ files over here. You can use your keyboard shortcuts. You can go and press Shift and select a bunch of files in sequence, or you can go and press Control and go and select individual files. This is a space delimited file, as you can see over here with your file type. Now it could be, looking at the preview of my coordinates, that I need to go and apply constants. In this case, I need to go and change the sign from negative to positive and vice versa. So in that case, I'm going to go and select Apply Constants, specify the constants using the negative, and then my Z coordinate I'll leave the same, and I'm going to multiply. If I'm going to do this numerous times, I have the option to save settings as defaults. So the next time we go here, this will already be set up for me. Click on Next. Indicate that this will eventually be the Y coordinate. Once we've applied the negative sign, that would be my X coordinate, and that would be my Z coordinate. If I want to use that the next time, I can go and save settings as defaults there as well. Click on Finish. Now if you look at the bottom, you can see we're scanning 9 different files for your site limits. Picking up the coordinates, we click on Yes. I'll bring that all in on surface number 1. Add in the files. If at a later stage I've got additional surveyed information, I can then bring that in as well. Same way using the multiple files option. Select the ones I didn't select before. Because I saved the settings as defaults, that is correct. Save settings as defaults, that too is correct. Click on Finish. And this time I'll bring it in on surface number 2. That will save you a lot of time not having to bring in these individual files separately. Let's go and close that. In my next example, I've got a survey here with just the Y and the X coordinates. I don't have heights and I don't have names. So as you can see on the left-hand side, I've gone and switched them on, and then magnifying in, I don't have the names or the elevations. So using some additional import functionality, I'm going to bring in the heights first. I do this by going to File, Import, ASCII Heights. This may be phase 1 of my survey project. Open. Be careful not to use your previous settings. So I'm going to go and switch off my apply constants. There you can see a different file type. That would be my Y, X, and Z. Civil Designer uses the Y, X coordinates, picks up that coordinate, and then applies the Z or elevation to that point. Zooming in, you can see my points now have an elevation. I could also use the height shading functionality there just to see that everything's not at 0. We're working with surface 1, click on a auto scale. It picks up all my elevations, click on OK. And there's a nice display of my different heights. Turning that off. And now looking at the names. Then we turn on the names. Then I'm going back to File, Import ASCII Names. Phase 2 of my survey. Let's open that up. Switch it off, but this time go and save the settings as default. Specify which is my name column, my Y coordinates, and my X coordinates. Closing that and moving on to the next example. Land XML file has become one of the most common formats of exchanging data from different software programs. So inside Civil Designer, you have the option to go and export your information via Land XML. But in this example, I'm going to show you how you can import it. Now, before you import it, you need to ensure that your projection settings is correct and that you've gone and created different files for the different design modules. With that done, you go back to File, Import, and select the Land XML file. Because of Civil Designer's full integration, you can import your surveyed information, different road designs, as well as your sewer, stormwater, and water. If you look at my output window, it's doing quite a bit of number crunching. It's importing my road data. Importing sewer information, importing storm information, and then finally the water information. If I go and zoom in, you'll see that all your services have been imported. Moving on to the import of a TIFF-DEM, a digital elevation model. If I go to my display settings, you'll see that I've got no information on surface number 1. So I've got 0 points. At the same time, if I go to File, Project Settings, there you can see I've already gone and created a terrain folder. I would then go back to File, Import, go and select TIFF-DEM, specify where to find the file, and click on Open. Specify on what surface you'd like to bring the information in on. And we're looking at over 3.5 million points. When you do this function, you preferably want to have your elevation switched off because the import process is a lot quicker. So there's your points. I'm going to zoom in using my predefined zoom views and then turning on my elevations. And if I were to go back to my display settings, you can see that we got over 3.5 million points. Now the last example I want to show you is something I've left for last for a reason. I'm hoping that the next time I can give you the Design Center webinar, I'll have additional reality mesh information. Now in front of us we've got what looks like a normal bitmap. If I go and right click and select render view, if you right click in the render view, you'll see you have an option to add a 3MX model, which I've done beforehand. Just to show you what it looks like, if I press Control again on my keyboard and I zoom in, this is a 3D point cloud that you are able to view. As mentioned before, we'll save this for my next Design Center webinar. That's all the time I have for now. Thank you very much for joining me. Until next time, back to you, Charles.
Thank you, Cameron. That was great. And thank you to all who attended today. Have a great weekend. And please remember to look out for the 8 a.m. reminder emails next week detailing the sheet file plotting functionality we will be covering at 2 o'clock that day. See you on Tuesday at the same time, same place, using the same link. Thank you and goodbye.